Greetings and salutations, Dota fans. That is I, Badger, back for another session of Badger's Briefings. So today's topic will be the interim period between TI1 and TI2. We're going to cover more or less an entire year of Dota 2's history in one video, and I hate to cover this much time in this little space, but I really do want to go into TI2, because between TI1 and TI2 was a bit of a weird transitionary period. Teams were still, either coming from Dota 1 to Dota 2, or coming back from Han. People were not necessarily all in on Dota 2 until deep into 2012. This is most notable with the Chinese scene. Many of these Chinese teams were playing, Dota 1 all of 2011 into 2012, some even into 2013, where they'll play both Dota 1 and Dota 2. They'll show up to these tournaments like the G1 tournaments, and they would play a Dota 1 bracket, and they would play a Dota 2 bracket, the same tournament. They're still taking Dota 1 just as seriously as Dota 2. With the West, a lot of teams went over to Dota 2. They're like, alright, it's Dota 2 time, let's do it. A number of notable players started to come back from Heroes of Neoworth, which is known by many nowadays as Dota 1.5. A couple legends of the game like Loda and Ake, who were truly fantastic players in the late 2000s from Sweden. Players you may have heard of nowadays from the likes of being members of Alliance as more recently community figures, before that as players, notably on their TI3 roster, the championship team. They had come back from Han. A number of our players started to come over from Han, which is always a great time, having that infusion of talent into the scene. And that would still be a trend for the next few years as well. Over the next, 3-4 years, you would see year by year more and more of these top Han players transition from playing Han competitively to playing Dota 2 competitively. But I mentioned the East, particularly China. They were playing a lot of Dota 1. There wasn't that much Dota 2 being played. There was, participation in some of these leagues. They would play like these Gosu Cups sometimes, but it was a lot of, internal stuff with the Chinese scene. They would do a lot of it behind the scenes. Not these big prestigious tournaments. And by modern standards, the tournaments the West was playing certainly weren't prestigious, but at the time, there's plenty of tournament series where you start laying the seeds and laying the ground roots of what will become the third-party circuit over the next half-decade. So ESWC was the first, super major tournament after TI1. It actually ended up being a rematch of the TI1 finals. eHome ended up having a different roster than they had at TI1. 820, the captain retired. They had a bit of a roster shuffle again. Navi as well had shuffled one player. I mentioned in the last video, minus Art Style plus Ars Art. This is the first tournament with Ars Art. Actually ended up being a somewhat stacked tournament. Ultimately, Navi won it. They beat eHome in the finals. Navi wound up winning a number of tournaments over this calendar year. Between TI1 and TI2, they were certainly the best Western team. We're going to see it throughout this video in terms of tournaments they just consistently won. But you'll see a lot of these tournament series. I mean, ESWC ended up falling off in terms of relevance as the years went on, but you're seeing some of these tournament series on the rise. One tournament series that I'm sure people are very familiar with if you watch Dota from like 2012 to 2017 is StarLadder. Well, StarLadder has its roots in this era. The first ever StarLadder tournament, as far as I can tell, was the Dota 2 Star Championship of 2011. It was basically StarLadder Star Series Season 0, more or less. It was basically all of the good CIS teams, all the good Eastern European teams, and a couple of good Western European teams attending. Surprise, surprise, Navi won it. Navi ended up winning everything in this Terra pretty much, but they played some close series up against the Team Shakira team that will become MTW. They played a close series against Mouse Sports. They played a close series against the Retry, who had a number of big, Russian and Ukrainian names on it. They had PGG, Gold Black, Always Want to Fly. But they won the Star Championship. A few months later was the first ever StarLadder Star Series, the StarLadder TV Star Series Season 1. Again, this time you have pretty much every single good Western team in it. What ends up happening is, well, again, Navi wins the tournaments. They go undefeated in the group stage play. They go 15-0, which is, unbelievable. For context, Dare went 13-2. CLG, Canalogic Gaming, with Pycats and Misery, they went 12-3. Na'Vi were utter and completely dominant. They go into the bracket stage, they beat up Moscow 5, they beat up CLG, and in the grand finals, they do a gentleman's sweep of Moscow 5, they beat them 3-1. So, surprise, surprise, Na'Vi's still very good at Dota 2! They then go on to Starlighter Season 2, which was in May. So actually, the group stage was in May and June. The finals were in July of 2012. Na'Vi again are there. Na'Vi again are the favorites. They again won the group stage, though this time not undefeated. They go into the bracket. They beat Massports. They beat Moscow 5. They beat Massports again. They win another Star Ladder. This is the trend. Na'Vi win a lot. Speaking of tournament series where Na'Vi won, we have the Premier League, which had a couple years where it was, one of the top. The TPL is one of the top series for, like that 2011 or 2012-13 sort of period. There's a lot of buzz around the Premier League. Had a lot of the top Western teams in it. TPL Season 1. Surprise, surprise, Na'Vi wins it. Second place is Complexity. Complexity actually was a North American team, formerly known as Team Fire. This was a team that would more or less become the Team Liquid of TI3. Captained by Fluff and Stuff with TC, Jo, IX Michael 88, the GOATs, the IXDL legend, and they had Hannah Montana playing the offlane, who would really fall off after 2012, but that's what can you do right there. Premier League Season 2, if you were wondering who won it, it was also Na'Vi. Na'Vi also won this tournament. This time, second place was CLG, and CLG was, an EU mixed stack, Pycats, Misery, Lacoste, Ake, and Miracle. And no, it's not the Miracle you're thinking of, or the other Miracle you're thinking of. It's the Swedish Miracle. They got Misery and Lacoste over from EG. Ake back from Han. Miracle from, I think it was Ghostu Gamers. So yeah, all these teams coming together. It's like, alright, we'll below the stack. It actually ended up being pretty good. This team would all go on to attend TI2. But again, we're at another, what is that now, 1, 2, I think it's 6 tournament wins for Na'Vi. The lineup with Havost, Dendi, Light of Heaven, Puppy, and Arzart, the 6 tournament wins, and we're not done quite yet with these Western tournaments, because we also have the Defense, which was joined Dota's Premier League, and the Defense was in terms of the early into mid-2010s, one of the bigger tournament series. Very prestigious. The first season of that occurred in starting in 2011, going into 2012. The finals were in March of 2012. Again, Na'Vi won this tournament. That's, if you're keeping track, that's now 7 significant tournament wins for Na'Vi. This time they beat Quantic Gaming, and this is actually the all-Danish roster, featuring Dota 1 legends Miguel and Mania. They had Link, who is most notable as being Ace's brother, the player today of Gaming Gladiators, formerly of Team Secret. Guy's been around the European scene for a long time. It's that guy's brother, Link. But yeah, Na'Vi win another tournament. That's 7 now, and well, we actually have some tournaments that Na'Vi don't win. We have the Defense Season 2. Na'Vi did not win this. And you may say, wow, what do you mean Na'Vi didn't win this? They actually lost in the bracket stage. Quantic Gaming actually got the best of them, though it was an entirely different Quantic Gaming. The Danish roster had been dropped. They picked up an NA roster featuring a Korok and Painted Gold, and a lot of players who were, fairly relevant NA names in the early 2010s, but never necessarily big, internationally relevant players. Na'Vi end up losing in losers to Bottom Bottom, and you may recognize the name Bottom Bottom, because Bottom Bottom is like a time capsule team full of players who would one day become extremely relevant in NA Dota. This is a team that had AUI 2000 playing the carry, future TI winner. Had a Snake King of a number of different teams. Currently plays as the support player and captain of Tundra, who, as of the time of recording, are in the winners finals of TI11, which is, what is this? A decade later, a literal decade later, more than that at this point. It had Way2, who would become, a member of these NA teams for a while. Played on I think Liquid for a bit. Definitely played on Dignitas for a long time. It was around a number of these different. I think he even played on EG for a bit. It was on a number of these different NA teams, and they had Fog on the team, who will later also be on that Dignitas team. After retiring, became a color slash analyst commentator, notably the pairing partner of OD Pixel. That's probably where you know him from today. If you're a new reviewer, it's like, oh, I know that Fog guy. He cast with OD Pixel. He was a player once and actually quite good in the early 2010s. But I digress. They also had Kizzles, who would never be a massive Dota player. I think actually went on to become a pro esports player in another game, if memory serves, but my memory is failing me at this point. That tournament ended up being won not by the teams that beat Na'Vi, though. Ended up being won by Complexity. This is the Team Fire team that I mentioned earlier, that Fluff and Stuff captained Complexity units. They end up beating Mouse Sports in the finals, and that Mouse Sports team also intended TI. This was a team notably with Black at the carry, Sing Sing in the mid lane. They still had Come With Me on the team. They didn't have Kuroki yet. They had Bambo and they had Theban 1437. This team also attends TI. Speaking of tournaments that Na'Vi actually didn't win, and this time it was DreamHack Summer. And if you look at significant European LAN mainstays across esports period, from probably the mid 2000s to the mid 2010s, and even beyond that, it's hard to not bring up DreamHack. This is always, big deal in Counter-Strike circles, big deal in Dota circles, big deal in Han circles. And DreamHack Summer 2012 was one of the big LANs before TI2. Na'Vi, again, are the favorites for this tournament, but they don't win it. They end up losing it in the finals to MTW. This is the Cinderin Seb Sakshka team. They end up upsetting Na'Vi in the finals 2-1. And for making this crazy upsets of Na'Vi in the finals, how much money do they get? They get just under $15,000 USD, baby. Less than 3,000 USD a player. That is one of the good things I definitely don't miss about the old Dota 2 scene, is no money involved for the players. It's definitely good nowadays if we're getting actual money to our pro players of tournament winnings. But that's more or less the Western significant lands. I'm sure I missed a couple in there, but that's a lot of the big Western lands of the era. There is one more tournament I want to bring up, though, and that is the Beyond the Summit World Tour. And the format was a mess. It was kind of a weird tournament, but what it did note, though, is the entry of Beyond the Summit into the Dota 2 scene, which, for those who have watched Dota 2 over the last decade, you've probably heard of Beyond the Summits. They have been, one of the bigger tournament organizers and commentary / broadcast companies in the scene for a very long time, featuring LD and Gods at the helm, featuring Lumi, and pretty much everybody who's casted Dota 2 over the last decade has probably spent some time casting with BTS. There's very few names that haven't. Future employer of mine Beyond the Summits, but this is decade back, way before they became the company they are today. Back when LD was still doing it out of basements. It was different times. different times. So, yeah, it's basically the tournaments going into TI2, which is going to be fun, because that's in the next video. It is the TI2 retrospective. This is definitely going to be a much shorter video than that one, but I felt like I had to do at least some justice to this interim period between TI1 and TI2, because there was a year of Dota 2 being played. It was a very quiet year of Dota 2. The prize pools were small, the attendances were mostly regionalized. The Dota itself wasn't that great, but we start building and crescendoing towards this TI2. And again, from the moment that Na'Vi won TI1, TI2 was instantly on the mind of every single player there, every single team there. They knew that would be their next chance to really prove they were the best. To say, all right, this is TI2. Another $1 million first place prize pool, another $1.6 million in terms of total prizes. Everyone knew that was the biggest tournaments, and everyone knew it would be the most significant events. And yeah, everyone was prepping for it. The teams flew in to Seattle this time, to Benaroya Hall, a very cozy theater type atmosphere, to play the second international, and it would be an utter and complete banger. I'll be back with that one, the TI2 retrospective, and it's going to be a long video, I can tell you that one. For now, though, that is the end for today. If you want to check out more of my content, it's on this YouTube again. I have a Twitch, I have a Twitter. They're both on the screen, and they will be in the description if you want to check out more of my stuff. As always, thank you for watching, and have a great night.